Coming up in Television Sofa Club.
Chuck Swirsky is a freaking Labour supporter.
That whenever there's a revolution or a coup, the first thing they used to go to before the internet age was a TV station.
I'm sick of this TV station. It just makes me want to poo. I think in an alternative universe, there is a Wayne's World broadcast signal intrusion. Whoa, dude, party on, excellent, WGN sucks.
He's turned up to an Elvis competition and dressed as Elvis, and he's come second to Elvis Presley. I don't know. I've got that analogy completely wrong.
He's just picked up bits of things from his bedroom, hasn't he, for the props?
Like a nurse's uniform.
Nurse's
maid's
uniform. Merit laid.
Yeah, Max Headroom was a capitalist crusader.
You're Max Headroom, aren't you? Do the voice. Do the voice.
Do the voice. Yeah, he'll go off.
The video pirates who managed to scramble Chicago airwaves.
Who's responsible for 2 acts of video piracy?
Someone using sophisticated equipment managed to briefly and illegally override broadcast signals on WGN-TV and WTTW.
Starting first on WGN-TV at 9:14 Sunday night during a sportscast.
12 quarters finally did. A man wearing a Max Headroom mask. We have been taken over by a video pirate.
Well, if you're wondering what's happened, so am I.
I'll get you a hot drink, miss.
A little after 11 p.m., Doctor Who was knocked out by the Max lookalike, who pitched a soft drink, then performed a series of antics that station officials found less than humorous.
A display of a marital aid and a portion of his or her anatomy.
The 90-second interruption ended with the video pirate's bare bottom being spanked with a fly swatter.
Night and the moon over Chicago they actually saw.
All early evidence points to someone with a broadcasting background.
Someone who really knows the business and microwave in general. Takes some pretty sophisticated microwave equipment.
The FCC says the pirates were able to use stronger microwave signals to override the television signals which are transmitted from the Hancock and Sears towers.
The incidents are now under investigation by the FCC and the FBI.
But the odds, I'd say, if a guy continues to involve himself, either sporadically or continuously, very great that we will determine who it is.
The FCC says the wise guys who pulled off this latest stunt are in very big trouble.
So what did you think about the whole thing?
Very, very funny.
Just to get attention, like throwing a brick through your window, so to speak.
No, I just thought it would be just a slight mess up, but that in the middle of the tape, it's going to be... We're going to have to tape over it.
I got so upset that I wanted to bust the TV set. I really did.
See, the thing is, I was going to wear Max Headroom get-up for tonight, but then I ditched the idea and just came in my normal get-up, you know.
Max Cornelius Headroom here, and I'm looking for some atmosphere. Hit it, boys!
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Television Sofa Club. Not the Teletext Sofa Club, but Television Sofa Club. Because tonight, our subject is the Max Headroom broadcast signal intrusion, aka the Max Headroom Incident, aka that time a dude hacked into Chicago television. And it is the 35th anniversary of the hack, so tonight we're going to celebrate that fact. And we are going to present to you our very own alternative theories for the Max Headroom broadcast signal intrusion hack, Captain Midnight hack thingy. And with me tonight, oh, sorry, my name is Max. And with me, I'm actually Dan. Hello, everybody. And with me tonight is my co-host. It is Mr. Carl. Is it Carl, or do you want a moniker tonight? Are you going to be called Captain Midnight tonight, Carl?
I don't think anybody could be Captain Midnight except for Captain Midnight. Just Carlos will be fine. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Oh, by the way, I'm going to take these off because I can't see a damn thing in them. Oh, everything's really bright now. Oh dear.
Turn the lights out now.
Okay.
The Max Headroom Incident has been increasing in notoriety year upon year. Ever since pirates hijacked the signals of 2 Chicago television stations in November of 1987, the Federal Communications Commission and latterly the Internet have been attempting to solve the mystery of who exactly was behind the stunt. In this podcast, Dan and Carl are going to posit some of their own unique alternative theories regarding the Max Headroom broadcast signal intrusion. But first of all, here's a brief explanation of what happened. On the evening of 22 November 1987, pirates overrode the broadcast of 2 different Chicago television stations with footage of an individual wearing a Max Headroom mask. The first interruption happened during WGN-TV's 9 p.m. news broadcast, but only a small part of the video was shown, and without audio, before engineers switched back to the regular signal.
Well, if you're wondering what's happened, so am I. Actually, the computer that we have running our news from time to time took off and went wild.
However, Max reappeared 2 hours later during a WTTW broadcast of Doctor Who.
He's a freaking nerd.
This time, engineers did not notice as quickly, allowing the 90-second video to be shown in its entirety. The footage is very DIY in its nature. In the background is a spinning panel with a corrugated pattern, mimicking the digital effects on the actual Max Headroom TV show. The Max impersonator, dressed in a brown blazer and tie, fumbles with a Pepsi can and bobs his head around energetically. His voice is disguised with a ring modulator, making his speech fairly difficult to understand. However, upon careful inspection, we can discern that he rifles through a selection of in-jokes relating to the WGN-TV network.
Oh, I just made a giant masterpiece for all the greatest world newspaper nerds.
The video suddenly cuts to Max's bare buttocks, whereupon he screams, "They're coming to get me." An accomplice, wearing a dress and face mask, repeatedly spanks Max with a fly swatter before the video ends and the Doctor Who broadcast resumes.
As far as I can tell, a massive electric shock, he died instantly.
The generator? Were you always so careful?
So that is a very basic explanation of the hijack itself, courtesy our friend Patrick. Thank you very much for doing that for us, Patrick. If you'd like a much more colorful explanation, there is a fantastic documentary by the YouTuber named The Bizarre, which I highly recommend. It goes into more detail on the cultural context surrounding the incident and a few generally held theories. Now tonight, we might elucidate on some of the finer details, but mainly we're going to be revealing our own personal theories, however unlikely they may be. I have a list of some of my theories here, Carl, and I know you're eager to share some of yours as well. I mean, Carl, these aren't necessarily the most serious of theories. No, I'll put that in at the beginning, but we are going to touch upon some more serious topics because these will inevitably lead into some more serious topics for conversation. Because, I mean, it can't be all laughs and giggles, can it?
There's always got to be a lining of a message somewhere, Dan. We'll unpick that and find it.
Oh, we'll try our damnedest to find it. Hold on, I'm going to go and close my wardrobe.
I can see your shorts now, Dan. Very nice.
See, all the newsreaders wear shorts, Carl.
They do, as I can see.
Right, so I'm going to begin with a serious one here, and I'm going to say that the Max Headroom incident is the canonical ending of Max Headroom. It is a final call for help from a desperate man suffering from severe piles. And in the end, he died instantly of an electric shock, despite the doctor being so careful. I think the Max Headroom incident has contributed to Max himself still being in the public eye. You could even say that in certain parts of the internet, the Max Headroom incident is more well known than Max Headroom himself.
Yes, no, I'd agree with that. I think there's probably now a lot of people that would, when you type into Google Max Headroom, it auto completes to incident now. In fact, a lot of podcasts and all that, they cover the Max Headroom incident. They have to spend some time to explain that it was actually a program that was on British television on Channel 4. And it makes me proud to be British that we make all these cult American figures.
Yeah, in a way, Max Headroom was British. Hello, he's a friggin' nerd. that Chuck Swirsky is a freaking Labour supporter.
Yes, I say that Chuck Swirsky is a pinko. Now, and the thing about is that the whole concept of Max Headroom and blipverts and how advertising and all that comes in, it's now become, everything is now referenced to what was happening in the film. So much of it now can be applied to go, yeah, well, that actually happened, with the advertising and getting your message through. When you look at things like Twitter and things, and the way that they include adverts now on tweets, even, and it's subliminal advertising. And sometimes you're reading halfway through an advert before you realise it's not a person. So yeah, I think thin end of a wedge. I think that's what that's what I think. And what was the name of the film that it was? Was it 20 Minutes into the Future?
20 Minutes into the Future.
Yeah,
yes.
and it's it is exactly right like that. And you could imagine somebody getting finished off for finding out what our intrepid reporter did before he got finished off.
Yeah, you could even say that Max Headroom as a character, he caught the wave of what was happening in the 80s with the media boom and explosion and the mass commercialization that we had reached by that point in the Western world. And also all over the world, because Max Headroom was the spokesperson globally for New Coke, which was, of course, sold in all parts of the globe, even Antarctica.
Mm. You wouldn't need ice cubes for that in Antarctica. But yeah, the MTV generation, the first people to actually grow up with videos, and seeing that advertising comes in on the side of videos, which are ergo advertising something. They were called promos, which is short for promotional materials. So it becomes sort of like a self-eating prophecy in the end, that you're looking at adverts shown in between pop videos, and then you've got the symbol of the West being Max Headroom, who is actually, when you look a little closer, is actually a parody and an amalgam of everything that's bad with the media and bad with the West.
That's just why it's so good, isn't it? Because it's all tongue-in-cheek. And I believe the creators, Rocky Morton and Annabelle Yankel, along with George Stone, who wrote it, the creators, they had a sort of white conservative talk show host type person in mind, TV figurehead, very cutting, arrogant, sarcastic. And it's funny how that has, in places like Japan, that in the 80s would have become a symbol of the West. We're all arrogant here in the West, and we're drinking our new Coke. I don't have any Coke with me tonight, but
not that sort of Coke anyway. But yeah, I would find that he is he is like he's your white evangelist going all over the world. He's an evangelist for everything, and he's sort of like a capitalist trope by actually selling Coca-Cola. And then I think that may lead on to some things we may be discussing later, where people could argue that he was actually jumping the shark.
Well, Max Headroom's lifespan on the television was very short, so you could say that he jumped the shark very quickly. But like you say, I think we'll go into that a little bit later on in today's show. So should we do another one of mine, or would you like to jump in with one of your theories, Carl?
Go with another one of yours there,
okay.
Dan. Yeah, keep going.
I liked this one. This is a plausible theory, I really think, and I've spent ages sitting there in my living room with my notebook, coming up with this theory, poring over the videos and all the theories that have been posted online, all the evidence. I got it all together, compiled it carefully, and came up with this. It's actually an emergency party political broadcast on behalf of the frickin' Liberal Party.
Excellent. But they didn't get Chuck to the party, unfortunately.
Well, no, people keep asking Chuck Swirsky, even now, is he a frickin' liberal?
Because he's a freaking nerd. I think I'm better than Chuck Swirsky. Freaking
There's a very good podcast, actually, Endless Thread. I think we've both seen it at different times. And if anyone needs to have a look at the whole thing, they go a bit deeper. They don't just like lift off what's happened off Wikipedia and just rephrase it. They actually go and find Chuck Swirsky.
I'm better than Chuck Swirsky.
And they ask him whether he's a liberal or not. Now, we can't actually we don't want to steal that podcast thunder. They need as many listeners as they got, So, but the transcript is available online as well. So they look at that, and they look at some various other theories as well. So Chuck Swirsky was somewhat surprised to be named, and to this day he still doesn't understand why he was, and he had security and everything like that because he thought he was a marked man for a little while, and we just don't know whether this person just said that as a throwaway comment or whether they knew him or not. And again, that leads into several other theories.
Yeah. Going back to the article you mentioned on Endless Thread, that's available as a transcript and a podcast at wbur.org, and I highly recommend that because I feel it's the best article to completely sum up everything that's been going on with the Max Headroom incident. And it's got lots of little details that sort of come straight from the official, the people who've taken up the mantle of the official researcher's role, whose names are Rick Klein and Bowie Pogue. Rick Klein, I believe, is of the Chicago Television Museum, and Bowie Pogue is the originator of a famous Reddit thread that appeared online about a decade ago, in which he puts forward his own theory of who perpetrated the Max Headroom incident. Have you seen the Reddit thread, Carl?
I've not read it, the Reddit thread, but because but yeah, it's the go-to source now, because there's a lot of people who they'll go down into certain threads and they think that they get close to, they think who done it, and the strangest thing is with the statute of limitations that these people could have come out at any point and said that they've done it without any fear of being prosecuted now, but they still haven't. So it actually makes the whole thing a little bit more curious. Are these people still here? Are they no longer with us, or are they are they still keeping it a secret for whatever reason? Because these are techie people. They're going to be moving from bulletin board services straight onto Reddit because that's what you do.
Yes, absolutely. I don't know if you've seen some of the theories online. I think the leading theory, we're going to give it away at the beginning because we're going to go into our own funnier theories, but the leading theory at the moment is that it was perpetrated by somebody at the TV station or had links to the TV station, perhaps a disgruntled ex-employee, and that's even hinted at in the WBR article. Now, these guys, Rick and Bowie, they sound like a pop duo, don't they?
Rick Bowie.
Rick Bowie. These guys, I think they have more information than they're letting on. So one day we will hear who did this. I'm fairly confident that it will come out who did this. But the question is, should they? The reason this is so popular is because it's an unsolved mystery, even though all the evidence points a certain way. you don't know for certain, do you? And anybody can, because the evidence is there online, the video is posted there for anybody to analyze. It's open to anybody's interpretation, and you can throw in theories from left field and speculate all day, which is why we're here tonight. It's why we're here tonight, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, well, after all these years, people are still talking about it, and you know, I was in no position to watch a cable television program in America. I mean, I don't live there, and I was too young for it at the time, really. But you know, to you know, for that to happen and for it to be discussed even today, it goes to folklore, really, isn't it? It's like figures in the past: Dick Turpin, Spring Hill Jack, Jack the Ripper. You know, it's like they achieve notoriety and infamy because they just cannot be solved. If someone came out one day and said we've got exclusive, you know, footage of what happened, the myth somewhat dissipates, and then people don't speculate anymore. And that is the thing with a conspiracy. They're probably more exciting to follow than the reality. And you know, some people, you know, live off conspiracy because it oils the wheels of their belief system. So I quite like to, you know, we all love a little conspiracy, and the Max Headroom broadcast intrusion is one that I want to keep hold of. I can do away with some conspiracies, but I don't like this one to be explained away as easily.
Yeah. Well, speaking of conspiracies, what do you think of the conspiracy that this was perpetrated by the TV station itself in order to garner ratings, or a sort of early form of viral video, if you will, because it was reported on the national and international news?
Yeah, I would say that that is a theory. Okay, you could do it just to promote, but when you're looking back in the days before pre-internet and pre-YouTube, what would they actually ever set out to achieve by doing that? You know, at the end of the day, okay, that might get copy all over the world that someone's intruded over a you know, a PBS broadcast of Doctor Who, but nobody outside Chicago is going to be able to improve the viewing figures in any way at all. So yes, it could be done that way, but really, you know, for the amount of effort and the amount of carnage that it caused with the FCC, I don't think. I think I'm going to rate that at just 4 out of 10 on the likelihood scale for tonight.
Well, what about an FCC conspiracy to teach the public a lesson, to put the word out there that we're not going to stand for this nonsense? They, of course, had the Captain Midnight hack the previous year, just months previous. And that guy only got $5,000 fine and a year probation.
32 minutes past midnight Sunday morning, HBO viewers east of the Mississippi suddenly had their movie, The Falcon and the Snowman, interrupted with this silent message printed over color bars. Good evening, HBO, from Captain Midnight. $12.95 a month? No way. Showtime movie channel, beware. An objection to the price HBO is charging dish owners for access to its recently scrambled programs. The signal got weaker, then, after 4 minutes, the movie resumed.
However, if you watch some of the news reports, Phil Bradford of the FCC says whoever did this hack will be fined $100,000. That's quite a bump up, isn't it? That's quite a bit more. In that year, or however many months since the Captain Midnight hack, that's the price that's gone up on these TV hacks. They were so scared.
Like to inform anybody involved in this kind of thing that there's a maximum penalty of $100,000, 1 year in jail, or both.
Yeah, but then you see you got your, you know, that's Dr. Evil, and it goes, oh, $100,000, you know. But yeah, that's again, and I can see that FCC perhaps putting out there a paper tiger just to put other people off. But when you look what actually happened, they didn't catch anyone to prosecute. And it got more people talking about it. I bet there was more and more attempts that we never even heard about because they got snuffed out at source because of the Max Headroom incident.
That's entirely plausible.
Mm-hmm.
But in my research, I wag my pen when I say this, my Wigan Council pen. Well, in my research for this, I've noted that there is some discrepancy in this fine. Phil Bradford, as I mentioned, says $100,000. On a news article, it said $100, but the news anchor said that might be a typo.
The 90-second interruption ended with the video pirate's bare bottom being spanked with a fly swatter, but his punishment will be far worse if he is caught. The maximum penalty is 1 year in jail and a fine. It says $100. I think it is a higher fine.
And yet another article from the time said it was only $10,000. So the price for catching these hackers was going up and down constantly, by the minute, evidently, like stocks.
Yeah, I could see, and so there's a bit of ambiguity with a fine, but it could have been $1 million, it could have been 100 million. They would have caught, would they have caught someone for 100 million? Yeah, I think they were just trying to say how serious it was. I think they were probably saying, right, okay, this is a bunch of nutty hobbyists. How much money could they possibly have in their bank accounts? And they scaled it to that, because obviously, you know, if I went around saying I'm going to find this bloke like £1 million and he hasn't got £1 million, it's not going to deter him because he knows he ain't going to cough up. But if you say I'm going to find you 150 quid, you know, it could actually be more of a deterrent because he's got 150 quid to lose. But yeah, no, it is an interesting take. So what you're saying actually, Dan, is that on that particular theory, that you're saying that they've manufactured a crime to make an example of anybody that would actually go ahead and actually follow through with the crime that they have framed.
Well, I'm just asking questions, Carl. I'm just asking questions, as they say in the conspiracy community.
Mm-hmm. Have you got anything else for us, Dan?
I've got plenty. I've got plenty, Carl. Plenty more where that came from. Plenty more nutty conspiracy theories.
Excellent, excellent. Well, so I think with the theory that I've got is more of a not who, because the beauty of my theory, and I'll waggle my pen, is that it can still facilitate all of your theories. So I'll explain. Okay, right. So what we're going to do is we're going the Wayback Machine now, back to the early 1980s. We'll go back to 1980, 1981, and we'll see who's just been elected after Jimmy Carter to the White House. For your start for 10, do you know who the president of the United States was after that?
Oh, Ronnie Reagan.
Ronnie Reagan, exactly. Right now.
And the reason I know that is because in the news article behind Phil Bradford is a picture of Ronald Reagan on the wall next to the Federal Communications logo. So I cheated.
No, that's using all sources that you've got available to you. It's no different to using the internet. My theory, okay, you need to get yourself into North American politics in the early 80s, okay? So you got your thinking glasses on, okay? So what you were looking at was, you were looking at America's biggest domestic threat were the republics of like Grenada, Cuba, and a few other Central and South American areas of concern for the US. Their biggest concern was the perceived row of dominoes effect that communism was having on their borders. And their biggest pain in the arse was Cuba. Well, it's not alleged anymore, you know, you Bay of Pigs and things like that. They've always gone through history trying to bring that regime down through sanctions and all that. So we go back to Ronald Reagan, who is in fact a big fan of technology. Do you remember something else that he did, which he was famous for in the mid-80s? A missile defense system called SDI, which was nicknamed
Max Headroom.
No, close. No, Star Wars. You see. Okay, right.
Okay.
But it's all coming together now, because when you look at what he was doing when he first got into government, he'd been working on a foreign policy called Radio Marty. that transmitted over the airwaves, that intruded over the airwaves of Cuba and their national broadcasts, to the extent that Cuba complained about it. So with that sort of setup in the White House, where you've got, they know that they can, with technology, they can win people over, or perhaps do things without murdering too many people or killing too many of their own troops by using technology. My thinking is that they use the Max Headroom incident as a dry run or a test, a pen test, to see how easy it would be for an undercover CIA cell to take over a radio station or a TV station to get their message out to incite and overthrow of a government. And I can give you another example of that, that whenever there's a revolution or a coup in a country, the first thing they used to go to before the internet age was a TV station. Because when you got the message out to the people, you have the people, because you're giving the message out. So now you look at the Max Headroom incident, and you look at the time it was broadcast, which I believe was on a Saturday.
A Sunday night.
Yeah, was it Saturday or Sunday?
It was a Sunday night.
Sunday night. So it's Sunday night. Okay. You haven't got as many staff on a Sunday night. Also, you look at what they were broadcasting at the time. It's a sports bulletin. So they were going over a sports bulletin because they knew that the demographic that they wanted to experiment with would be men watching the sports results. They wouldn't have gone for a broadcast intrusion over a cookery show because they would have incited the wrong people, people who like cooking, people who like cooking. Do you see what I mean? So it was all, you could say it was all done in a way where they go, okay, well, if we went to Cuba and nicked an existing satellite uplink truck and beamed it over the football, they would have done whatever they would have done, like with overlaying their message to incite the masses, and then they would have got out of there, and that would have perhaps started a revolution or disorder in the respective country. You see, so we come back to Max Headroom. I know this is taking ages, but okay, now we come back to Max Headroom, and what they've done is they've instructed the cell to say, you go out, find the people that can do this. Okay, so they find people who are pissed off with WGN or ex-employees, find the technology that you can do this with. So they find the trucks, they can aim the microwave at the Sears Tower, like they did. And then they say, just do something that will get out in the news. And then that's when they've gone to the people that are doing it, and they've gone, what's the most shocking thing you can do? And they've come up with the Max Headroom thing, because they've been given a blank canvas to do whatever they like. The object of it was to see how easy it was to do. So they've gone and done it. The Max Headroom thing is basically, you know, make sure it's got shock value, make sure people know it's not an advertisement. If we can get column inches somewhere, we know that that would work. So, like, you know, when we refine it and we have our own stock video of a Fidel Castro lookalike or some dictator lookalike, we can play that over the half time of the soccer game in the South American Republic. You see, you know, because they would have practiced, they would have seen how feasible it was. Now we get back to the Max Headroom incident. The first one was a live, we think it could have been a live intrusion, and it could be the case that there was just enough staff working on that Sunday to get rid of it. So they got rid of the noise carrier. Although the picture was there, they got rid of the noise carrier. So the pen test failed on that one. The second time it broke through was on a PBS network where they've got nobody at work on a Sunday, you know, just the guy who's just pressing play on the tape, basically, and a continuity announcer if you're lucky. So then that's when you get the full recorded one. And the recorded one is basically satellite uplink goes in there, beams up, finds a frequency that hasn't been moved because everyone's been spooked already, and it's this poor old PBS broadcast. So Doctor Who really cops it and gets the full thing. And in fact, we more or less know that the tape ran out on the pre-record of the Max Headroom incident on the second one. It wasn't cut out. So then we get success there. But then when all the people come back and they sit back and they have this meeting and they go, well, yeah, so, okay, we managed to do it. You know, it could be that they decided, oh, no, we tried 6 stations and we actually could only get it through on one of them. And we decided, no, it's too much of a waste of time and resources, and we won't go that route. We're not going to use that anywhere. But without trying it in your own country, remember they've got similar broadcast equipment, NTSC, and the same TV systems and things like that. They might have thought, no, it was just too much effort in the end to try and get that Max Headroom incident replicated somewhere else. But it wouldn't have been Max Headroom, remember. It would have been something a lot more meaningful. And I think they deliberately made it innocuous to make it completely detached from any political Machiavellism. There you go. I'll breathe now.
I think you're right. It does cover all of the other theories that we have gone through and will go through tonight, because it's an overarching theory. You've actually tried to tackle it from a more national, international perspective. You're attaching a much bigger worth to the incident than we're all giving it credit for.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, then they've sold it very, very well indeed, because I'm pretty sure nobody has come up with that theory yet. And I wonder if anybody has come up with a theory about it being a government thing.
I mean, if you look at what happened afterwards, nobody got anything. The FCC were against the CIA were against the FBI. They're all played off against each other. It snuffed itself out. And maybe we will never find who done it, because it was actually like a government operative who didn't know who the hell Max Headroom was. It was some pencil neck in the Pentagon all along.
Right. Now, you mentioned the breakdown in communication between the FBI, FCC, and the local Chicago police. And that was definitely a thing that was reported. It certainly happened. And that's what's blamed for the whole incident coming to nothing in the end, and nobody was caught.
Mm.
But could it be, along similar lines, could it be that the TV station paid off the local police force to basically make the case go cold, or to stop knocking on doors, to stop going around and pursuing the case?
But it is feasible. I mean, you don't know who this disaffected employee was, and perhaps if you cornered them, they might have had plenty more to say about their motives for carrying this stunt off. You know, you could say that that's probably why it was perfect pickings for somebody to carry out an experiment like that. You know, if they got someone who's really disaffected, and perhaps the brief is from some sort of agent that, you know, you need to try and cause minor anarchy and see how easy it would be to do over a broadcast thing, or broadcast medium, should I say? Then yeah, you could do.
Yeah, it is mentioned in the Endless Thread article that apparently layoffs had just happened previously on the TV station. Now, if we work this into your theory, that could just be something to throw us off the scent.
Mm-hmm. It could be, or it could actually be that these people didn't know who they were doing it for. You know, it could be that they were encouraged to, you know, go, oh, yeah, let's do this stunt and all that, and they just wanted to do the stunt regardless of who. Or it could be that these people were die-hard patriots, and they thought, no, we'll do everything we can to protect the, you know, the way of life that we have, and if we can do anything in our tech hacker community to do that, we'll say whatever it takes to get the right people on board.
Yeah, hence the frickin' liberal the only line in the whole thing that's politically motivated. Because if you look at a lot of these hacks through history, many of them have some sort of political motive or some sort of message they want to convey. With this, well, I think there is a message, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in my next theory, I think. But it doesn't seem that there is a serious motive to this. Frickin' liberal is the only mention of politics in the whole thing. But I don't think we should read too much into that, personally.
Well, also the comment that, you know, when Endless Thread actually looked into it, I mean, you know, spoiler alert, it turns out that Chuck isn't really much of a liberal at all. So either they knew him and they knew that, you know, that was he definitely wasn't, so we say that he is. So and again, you know, the beauty of all these theories is that they can all swim together. They fit in certain different certain ways round. But yeah, that was the only political thing that came out. That was and the mention, obviously, the American application of liberal is to actually insinuate that they're left of centre. So, you know, to call someone a liberal in this country, you know, you're sort of middle of the political spectrum. But obviously, if you call someone a liberal out in America, you're more or less accusing them like McCarthyism. You're more or less accusing them of being like a red.
Fits in with your communism theory, I guess.
Yeah, and
a red.
Yeah, that's the other thing as well. I mean, you know, that's always, it's quite a hurtful thing to call someone a liberal in certain circles.
Yeah.
So you wonder if that was actually in the mind of the person playing Max Headroom. Maybe when that mask comes off, that is what they're like. Maybe they are. You know, like it's funny. I don't know about you, Dan, but you know, when you look at hacker, you sort of look at them as this is just a generalization, obviously, but you look at them as sort of like being left of center, wanting to share with the world, or you know, like freegans, people who won't want to, who are anti-property and anti-capitalism. And that is a built-in theory, isn't it? So if you imagine that you've got the guy with the mask on, and actually he's the biggest right-winger going, you know, and because he's a right-winger, because you've got to remember he's working for the government, and he's a die-hard Republican, and he's doing everything he can to prevent the spread of communism. So, well, you know,
in that way, it's curious then that they would choose Max Headroom, because he's supposed to be a sort of middle-of-the-road conservative white guy, isn't he? And that's what they're lampooning in the original show. But in the American version of Max Headroom, they slightly changed the tone. So he's one of the good guys on the side. Was he on the side of the TV station in that series? So
I think that he was. But the other thing is that, you know, you've got to think of what masks were for sale in the shops of Chicago at the time. You know, if it was a case of, you could have a Ronald Reagan mask, or, you know, I don't know what other masks would be available, but, you know, if they had a Max Headroom one up there, maybe the choices of mask available maybe were the inspiration of the character that was there.
Does that also cover the get-up of his accomplice that appears in the video, fly swatting him on the buttocks?
Yeah, dressed as a French maid. So, yes. You know, and that puts you off. You know, does that mean that the co-conspirator was a female? The quality of the video would indicate that we won't know for sure. But if they've been to the same shop and they bought the French maid thing and the Max Headroom get up from the same place, that could happen. But the one thing that makes obviously this less plausible is the excellent spinning garage door effect that they've got behind them. I mean, that is, you know, if they have driven it on, all I could find was this French maid uniform and this Max Headroom mask, they've done the background absolutely wonderfully. I mean, that's really come out nicely.
It's just to try and throw you off the scent. Yeah, I think you're right, Carl. I believe that there is more premeditation and thought that has gone into the Max Headroom hack than they would have you believe. Because if we look at the incident itself and all the things that are brought up within the video, the 90-second video from the second hijack at 11:09 p.m. at 11 p.m. on the PBS station, it's easy to say, well, he's just making it all up as he goes along. He's just riffing. Everything is just, I'll do this. Now I'll pick up this Coke can and throw it. Ha ha ha. But there might have been a little bit of a scattergun approach to some of the props that they got. But if we analyze everything that was said in the video, I think it has some sort of relevance. Or are we giving them too much credit? Well, let's just run with this, because we've got the mentions to the TV station. That's the main thing. They're just ripping into the TV station. Max, who voids his bowels after watching the intro to Clutch Cargo, he might be saying, well, we're sick of seeing that on repeat for the 5 millionth time. I'm sick of this TV station. It just makes me want to poo. It makes me want to poop. Yeah, what have you got there, Carl? What's that?
This is Bud Zero.
Oh, is it?
It's not Coke or Pepsi. Sorry, mate.
What a shame.
That's it.
So what else do we have in the video? We have, of course, the can, which is relevant to his shilling for New Coke that year.
What I'm talking about, and you're not, is that more people prefer the new refreshing taste of Coke over Pepsi. Sweating? It's true. More people are, as we Cokeologists say, catching the wave. Catch it if you can. Catch the wave. Coke.
Also with the Coke, though, it's he was promoting New Coke? He wasn't promoting the Coca-Cola, which we now was called Classic, Original, or whatever. You know, for some reason they wanted to change the recipe. So when you're looking at, you know, he's not only has he sort of hitched his trader onto something like, you know, really commercial, he's also backed the wrong horse. He's backed the unpopular version of the most popular beverage in the world. So he's sort of like, he's turned up to an Elvis competition dressed as Elvis, and he's come second to Elvis Presley. I don't know. I got that analogy completely wrong, but it's hypocritical. You know what I mean? He's you know, he's decided to go all in. He's doubled down on actually going, yeah, I'm going to hit the commercial thing. And then when he's done it, you know, his team have picked the wrong thing to go for.
Yeah, I see what you mean. That's taken on more relevance in the years to come, and people researching this thing. It was a prophetic thing, wasn't it? It just adds to the whole satire and irony of the whole thing, I think.
I mean, I don't think he was clever enough to know that Coke, New Coke was going to bomb. And he thought, because, you know, you look back now, you'd go, well, that'd be perfect. You know, it's like, yeah, of course he's going to back New Coke because he wants it to fail.
Yeah, well, you could write into that whatever theory you wish. If you're a conspiracy theorist like we are, Carl, sitting here in our blazers and ties with our notepads and our shades.
Yeah, so I've just got my conspiracy jumper on today. So I'm just sitting here dreaming of the conspiracy. I do look a bit Steve Jobsy, actually. It's quite dark, isn't it? There.
What is it? Theranos?
It's I don't know.
Was it Theranos or
Theranos?
Yeah, you've got your Theranos jumper on, a more modern tech scam, if you will. Yeah. A more modern tech.
You could just got to wave your arms around on a white background, and then you can sell anything. Coke.
Oh, Coke. Well, speaking of hands, did you notice how big Max's hands are in the Max Headroom hack? He's got some big, thick hands. I'm sure the FBI looked at that and thought, well, we're looking for somebody with oversized gloves.
The other thing that we could never tell now is video quality, because what we have is we've got videos of a poor signal. So we watch that now and we think, oh, that's all fuzzing in and fuzzing out because he's a pirate, you know, pirate broadcast. But what we can't really tell is because of the picture quality of a NTSC screen and the fact it's been lifted onto VHS, it's lost a hell of a lot of its quality. We can't be sure we look at that now as going, oh, that's rather primitive and rather Heath Robinson. But actually, was the quality of that broadcast, close to broadcast quality? I mean, we look at it now thinking it was all done on a camcorder. But that's our belief, obviously, of what it was like, But at the time when it was actually overlaid, the sound quality was really good. So I'm just wondering if the picture quality was a lot better. And then that would again go back to the fact that, this is a bit more elaborate than what we think. It looks shitty and amateur now because it's on a 40-year-old bloody VHS tape that was recorded off a standard definition TV.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Ben, who is from the Oddity Archive, you might know about him. Guys, if you're in the slightest bit interested in the Max Headroom hack, you probably have seen one of his videos. He thinks that it is a camcorder that they have used to shoot this rather than a film. I believe because of some of the artifacting and the glitching that happens. Oh, the screen tearing at the top that you only get with a certain grade of domestic camera.
Yeah, although you do get that screen tear as well on a TV output. I used to get that when I used to plug my portable TV into a video, and you'd get a forward. The overscan can't keep up at the top; it bends over at the top and comes down. So again, I think it probably is what Ben says, but you still could say that is lifted from just a monitor, a TV monitor that is not isn't the scan lines aren't coming in time at the top of the screen.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is. I would say it would be a camcorder because the size of cameras back then. I mean, a camcorder is still going to be quite large. It's still going to be over your shoulder. At that, you didn't have view camera or anything just then, and I guess you'd need to plumb it through a telly just to see what output you were getting.
Yeah, some theorists have actually said that it could be a film camera. We just don't know for certain. It could have been shot in the WGN studios for all we know, really.
And they've tried to degrade it to make it look worse than what it is, to throw people off. But again, it comes back to the background of the spinning corrugated door or whatever it is. The definition of that certainly shines through, and you've made contrasted versions for teletext, and it works really well. It's as if it was designed for a black and white TV broadcast. Yet again, most Central American countries use black and white TVs.
See, there it is. It all feeds into it, Carl.
Oh, everything is. I'm on a conspiracy roll right now.
Listen, I can see the people on Reddit right now. They're just writing this down. Oh, a new theory. Let's post about it. Yeah. There we go.
Mean, you can blame the American military-industrial complex on the trains being late in where I live. You can blame them for everything.
Yes, going back to the corrugated iron background, that is the best part of this thing, props-wise, because for many years it fooled us all. We thought it was an actual corrugated sheet of iron, and the FBI were investigating warehouses that could have corrugated sheets of iron in them, but it wasn't a corrugated sheet of iron. It was a piece of cardboard with a load of duct tape attached to it. And if you watch the HQ 4K restoration, which I'll probably link up in the description of this video, the restoration shows that it is most definitely tape on some sort of surface.
Well, I guess you have more options, didn't you? Because you've now made that like 150 times lighter, and it's not going to make any noise. So I guess you could just put a pin in the middle and spin it off a camera tripod or something like that.
Yeah.
Or off a wall, just have a nail in the wall and just get someone spinning it round who's out of shot. That's how I would do it.
Yeah. That leads to another theory. Some people said that it was actually an advertisement for a corrugated iron boards company. But as I've just said, that one's been debunked in recent years because we've got, I believe it was for the 30th anniversary of the hack, we got a higher quality restoration courtesy the Chicago Museum of Television. In fact, we learned a lot of new things, I think, and we just brought lots and lots more conspiracists to the subject. Should we go to some more theories?
Yes, let's do it.
Well, I've seen it said online that Max Headroom, the Max Headroom hijacker, was the best Doctor. But actually, I would say he was a second-rate Doctor Who villain with slightly better props.
Well, you could be looking at the way Doctor Who, I'll be controversial and say the way that it's written these days. I'd say that the Max was certainly the ninth best Doctor. That's for sure. You know, and yeah, I just, but yeah, that could be. It could be the. I wonder what Doctor Who would have thought about Max Headroom.
I don't know. He suffered from a massive shock and died instantly. Doctor Who killed him. He hated him. He hated him.
He had 3 hearts. Was it? He regenerated. Yeah. What would Max Headroom now regenerate into? Who have we got close to now?
Well, interestingly, Max Headroom would certainly work in the 21st century, in the year 2022. If he came back and did a series, he'd work just as well as he did in the 80s. Only minor tweaks are needed, but that sort of trope still exists in media. Arrogant chat show host.
You're right, Dan. I think he could become one of them sort of summarizers that you get on the Yesterday history programs. So like when they go, oh, we're just visiting this this German armament thing that's built in the Channel Islands, somewhere in the English Channel. And then they go to this person, they go, and you went in and there was huge cannons everywhere and huge storage areas everywhere. It was absolutely massive. And then like the next bit would be, oh, and we go to this gold mine now that's been abandoned in South America. And we'll ask our expert about it. Oh, yes, it was marvellous. Can you imagine? It was really big and all that. The expert summarising that Max Headroom, he could just do that. He could just, you know, he'd go, yeah. He'll go, well, war's a bad thing. Yeah, and then that'll be that.
That's brilliant, Carl. I think that tops everything.
He could be, yeah, some summariser for National Geographic, maybe, or yeah, but chat show host. I think, and again, I don't know if it was art imitating life. I mean, I don't think Jonathan Ross is going to watch this, but you know, Jonathan Ross became a good chat show host after Max Headroom. Is that because of the Max Headroom incident, or in spite of the Max Headroom incident? Because of Max Headroom, but not the, I wouldn't say the intrusion, but yeah, you'd say you got that trope of smarmy talk show host giving way to the younger, more dynamic type one. Jonathan Ross was at the time, but he was sharp suit, wasn't he? And if you squinted your eyes, you'd look a bit like Max Headroom. He had the hair and the lighting. And maybe Max Headroom was the host that we all wanted. On an 80s camcorder, yes, Jonathan Ross would have looked exactly like Max Headroom. Just a little bit of makeup. At the risk of going off at a tangent, do you remember a very similar Max Headroom character on children's TV in the early 90s? Oh, is it him? Is it him by any chance? I don't know. No, it was. Yeah, there was a guy, and I always thought I was that Max Headroom, but it wasn't Max Headroom. But it was done in exactly the same way. Right. Let me think. And you know, stylistically, it was very, very similar. Could it have been a puppet like Spitting Image or something? Spitting Image always comes up on the periphery when people talk about Britain and the Max Headroom hijack because of the scary puppets. And there could be some sort of link there. Maybe it was somebody who worked for Spitting Image made the mask. Now, I want to ask a question about the mask, Carl. Do you think the mask came with the shades, or do you think they added them? Do you think the original mask had eye holes and they put the shades over to disguise themselves? Or do you think it came with the shades? That would be bizarre, because I would never sell a Max Headroom mask without the shades. Really? Did he wear shades? Did he wear? He wore shades, or did he not wear? He didn't. Yeah, sometimes he did. Yeah. Yeah, they must. I'm not sure. Yeah, they knew their subject well then, maybe. But yeah, they would have covered he would have covered his eyes because he could be identified, couldn't he, with his eyes? Yeah, so I reckon they must have cut holes in the mask. Because they'd need to be bigger for him to see what he was meant to be reading, and then put the shades over. But as you've already demonstrated, how difficult is that to read with shades on?
Yeah, good point.
So maybe that's why he was riffing so much. Maybe he started reading and then gave up halfway through and then went into a freestyle.
Yeah, I mean, he's just picked up bits of things from his bedroom, hasn't he, for the props? Coke can.
Like a nurse's uniform, a maid's uniform, rather. Yes.
Marital aid.
Yeah, that's it.
This feeds into my biggest theory of this, the Max Headroom Incident. I think, here it is. It's a genuine Max Headroom sex tape, finally released to the public. It's a sort of revenge porn from the TV station. Now, if we look at the evidence here, the final segment where he's being spanked on the bottom like a naughty boy, it's a genuine portrayal of foreplay.
Coming to get me.
Go on.
Well, actually, there's the alternative theory that Max's buttocks were infested with flies due to the piles, hence the fly swatter. But yeah. I think that was just something he had lying around in his bedroom. One of his toys, if you know what I mean.
Yes. But yeah, I must admit, to have that hanging around, but again, so outrageous, isn't it? When you read online about what happened, you sort of see people actually rung in and said, well, what was that? Was it an advert or something like that? And some people still thought it was just all part of whatever was happening on the TV station. So maybe that's why they tried to make it as outrageous as possible.
Well, the reason for that is it was a new thing. People wouldn't have known about this sort of thing. It had never really happened before. People hacking into a TV station. They might have seen public access with crazy stunts going on there, but they wouldn't expect that sort of thing from an actual broadcast TV station, a paid one, licensed TV station. So it's entirely possible that they would believe that they would think, oh, it's part of the broadcast. I'm going to keep bringing up the news reports because they are possibly the best documentation that we have from the time. Because they're unedited, they are just the way the news reported the incident at the time. Each news channel has gone with a different angle. Now, I believe the WGN one was the most serious one and the most stark, because I believe that one was the one with the bloke that said, I got so annoyed, I just wanted to bust the TV set. I mean, the craziness of that. And then a woman came on and said, oh, I'm going to have to tape over it now. It's ruined my broadcast. It's ruined my tape of Doctor Who.
So what did you think about the whole thing?
Very, very funny.
Just to get attention, like throwing a brick through your window, so to speak.
No, I just thought it would be just a slight mess up, but that in the middle of the tape, it's going to be... we're going to have to tape over it.
I got so upset that I wanted to bust the TV set. I really did.
I mean, in a way, that one thing is what made me interested in the Max Headroom incident, because it's just absolute comedy gold, that. And then they cut straight to a kid who's saying, I think it's very, very funny. So you've got all these outraged adults, and then a kid going, yeah, it was pretty good, that, wasn't it? Yeah. They're saying, basically, that if you're on the side of the hijacker, you're a little kid, and you can't laugh at this because it's serious business. And nefarious people can hack into TV stations now.
That is the other thing with it, isn't it? It's sort of like the broadcast intrusion. It was meant to maybe bring home a message to the viewing public that, they're not all safe at home.
Yeah.
If someone can intrude on your TV program, then they could quite easily do anything else that they wanted to do. So they're sending out a message there to make people sort of like more vigilant or more aware, maybe. I mean, you know, there's been obviously other similar intrusions done. You know, when you look at the Captain Midnight, or there's the one done in the UK with the radio amateur who just tuned his radio into a broadcast frequency for the sound carrier for his local TV relay, and went over the program pretending to be from somewhere else. They were clearly Captain Midnight one, not necessarily, but
sorry, the British one. Are we talking about the Vrillen incident in 1977, where he pretended to be an alien?
Yes, that's right.
Oh, by the way, I must point out that the so-called recording on YouTube is not an original recording of that. It's somebody reading it dramatically.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Sorry, go ahead. I just wanted to clarify that.
Well, that's a CFAX Holidays moment, isn't it? Whoever's done that now has rewritten history.
But, the Mandela effect again, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, but the thing is, when someone, you know, that's a joke the moment someone opens their mouth, you know, and that's the thing with it. But what they've done with the Max Headroom incident, which is so different, is that you just don't know what the motives are. I mean, with the British one, you just knew that the bloke was just dicking about, and you knew he must have been a bit of a boffin to actually do that. Whereas you sort of left scratching your head with the Max Headroom one. You know that someone must be clever to hack it. You know that someone must be able to get their resources on it. And you don't know if these people are frustrated art students or something like that, you know, to do the performance. But I think there's just too many people in there for anybody to know exactly what's going on. You know, it's so fragmented. You know, people are just doing their little bits in it. You know, so that's why it's different to the British one, where it's just one geezer doing a voiceover pretending to be an alien. Right. He knows what he's doing. He's got full control over that. Whereas the people who were doing the video, like I say, they might not have known that that was going to get even broadcast. You know, that might have just been like, oh, we're going to video this as a, you know, for a bit of a laugh. And then someone's got hold of the tape and gone, right, I've got to now hijack a satellite truck. What am I going to broadcast? And I've just stuck that in.
It's just too perfect, though. All the stuff in the hijack lines up perfectly. If the second tape were broadcast during the first hack, and all the same lines were read, all the same content was there, it would sort of line up with the fact that they were taking the piss out of the first station. It was during the sports broadcast. He cuts in to say, I'm better than Chuck Swirsky. Chuck Swirsky, local sports reporter, by the way.
Yeah.
That, to me at least, shows that that's what they wanted to broadcast during the first one. And I think they deliberately waited for that time. They knew they were going to do it during the sports report. Yeah. And as such, it was pre-recorded with that in mind. So I think they knew before they recorded the video that they were going to do the hack. So there must have been some sort of test. Before this, they must have successfully got in at some point.
Yes, yeah. So they must have been. There's a couple of things on that. So yeah, they must have done a test, but they must have been really innocuous. You know, they must have just put a very brief glimpse of something up at a certain time for someone to be watching it somewhere else. You know, just like a blip. You know, because nothing's been recorded about that. But also with what you were saying about, you know, your second point, that the video was made, you know, as a snipe to mention one of the sports reporters. So yes, it was meant to go out on that first one that got half successfully blocked. We knew that it happened, so it wasn't successfully blocked, but it was to the extent that the noise carrier was out, and it wasn't up for long. But I still think that they probably tried many cable stations before they got to the Doctor Who. I think that was in the pecking order, very low down, because it wasn't meeting the objectives of getting a lot of people to watch it. I mean, how many Americans are going to watch PBS Doctor Who
On a local TV station.
Yeah, on a local TV station. They've basically just got down to the lowest, easiest to penetrate thing. And when you do look back and go, well, was this an effective way of trying to incite a nation to do X, Y, and Z? They've probably gone, well, the idea is good, but no, actually, the only people that you actually go out to is going to be 10 people who are interested in a British show on a free-to-air thing when everybody else is either in bed or watching the game. So actually, on the balance of probabilities, it wouldn't be a particularly successful thing to pull off as a covert op.
Do you think it would have been possible to hack the national TV with the technology available to the hackers? Would they have been able to do that? Or was this the biggest they could have shot for, as in a Chicago local TV station?
As I understand it, it would probably be very difficult to do it. You'd have to synchronize various vans or trucks to be in the line of sight and more powerful than the uplinks that are going to the hub at the time, which was the Sears Tower. So would it have worked? No, I don't think it would. But would it have needed to work? No, as well, because again, if you're looking at what they were trying to achieve, they weren't trying to achieve to take over every station in America. They were looking just to knock out one hub. And if you think that an area serving Chicago would probably be like a city state or a capital city somewhere else in the world, they'd only really need to take out one uplink. So I don't think they could have done it on any larger scale. I think the only other thing you could really do with that is get the tape and actually break into the main place that's broadcasting it out. Do a Wayne's World rather than a Max Headroom.
Yeah, wrong film. That would have been the Wayne's World incident, wouldn't it?
Yes. I'm surprised he didn't actually get a cameo or anything in that. I think everybody else did in those films.
Well, I think in an alternative universe, there is a Wayne's World broadcast signal intrusion with people with Garth and Wayne masks going, whoa, dude, party on, excellent, WGN sucks, extreme close-up.
Yeah, swing. Excellent.
Schwingsky is a freaking liberal.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, he's a real fucks. Oh no! So I think that. So yeah, it's good theory. I think the theories are getting really good now. Dan, I think.
Well, really good. Have we spoken about this guy yet tonight?
No, I think you should introduce him now, Dan.
Excuse the other book there, which I was using to prop him up. But here we go. This book is entitled Creative Computer Graphics. I'll just get a good view of that for you.
Oh, I've seen that book before. That came free as a free gift for buying something at the Britannia Music Club. It used to be not Music Club, the Computer Club. So you'd buy 2 computer games and you'd get a free gift with your first one. And a friend of mine actually got that book. That's why it looks so familiar. My mate got that book. Where he ordered some computer games and got that book. I ordered some computer games and waited for my book, but I got Paddington Bear Learn How to Read and Write for the ZX Spectrum.
Unfortunate. You went the wrong way, Carl. You went the wrong way.
Indeed.
So
I must have read my handwriting.
This guy is called User Friendly, and I'll just give you a little bit of background about him here. Designed by Bill Murr and modeled by Carter Burwell as a set of polygons, ellipsoids and cones, User Friendly is generated from a computerized description containing all the information necessary to create perspective views of him from any angle. Surface color and reflectivity are also specified in the description so that various shading effects can be produced as desired. His many joints, including eyelids, can be animated, and a human mouth has been mapped onto his face to give the impression of speech lip synchronized to a dialogue track. Now, the reason why this guy is so relevant is because he's a sort of forerunner to Max Headroom. And when the character of Max Headroom was originally pitched, this was the visualization they had in mind. They wanted to do a fully CG model, but it unfortunately was cost prohibitive at the time. You know, these days, anybody can do that with Face App or a free app on our little mobile phones. A little computer that size, a little computer that size can produce that now, which probably took a massive supercomputer in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So this guy was designed by Annabelle Yankel and Rocky Morton, I believe.
Oh, right.
This is a really cool book, by the way. I love it. I've thrown away a lot of my books, but I kept this one. Look at this. This is relevant tonight as I struggle with the book.
Oh, yeah, the Coke can. Yes. Yeah.
Your love is fading. Catch the wave. There's a lot of fantastic graphics in here. Yeah, user-friendly. The first computer-generated TV presenter. Part of a moving sequence created at New York Institute of Technology Computer Graphics Library.
All right. So he's done in America.
And he was so significant, they chose to depict him on the front of the book.
Yeah, I always remembered that book, and I misremembered it. I actually thought it was Max Headroom on the cover.
Yeah,
that's yeah. And you look at that now, and you go, well, but you can still see Max Headroom in him.
Yeah,
yes.
They're pretty much the same, aren't they? They've modelled the real life, as it were, makeup after him.
One of the first singles I bought was Max Headroom and the Art of Noise.
Ah, so how was that?
Insomnia. Goes, am I sleeping? No. Where am I? In bed? What am I doing? Talking to myself. I must have a star on my door. A door. Swing doors, huh?
Did he get to number 1?
No, I only got back to number 11.
So that proves that Max Headroom was very, very popular, a massive superstar. He even had a hit song in the 80s. His star shone so bright, and then it was extinguished before we even knew it. He became old hat. He sort of faded out. I guess, as you said earlier, he jumped the shark. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I think he went behind a paywall. I think that was the problem. I think he went off of terrestrial television because he had a very good Channel 4 show on British Channel 4, where a lot of the guests didn't get him, so they didn't know whether he was being serious or ironic, and that was working really well. But maybe he got found out, or he did go too soon, and he was doing a lot more for like American stations, and became out of reach to the touchstone that he had in the UK. That's for sure. He came off the back of we just finished with music shows like The Tube with Jules Holland, and the video show, which was the chart show, which started on Channel 4. A lot of that came out after Max Headroom had been. Well, The Tube didn't, but the video show certainly did. The chart show that used to have a test card that came up just to prevent people copying the video, and it was actually generated with either an Amiga or an ST, if I remember rightly. But there just seemed to be, when he moved on, everything just backfilled very quickly afterwards. And, I think his concept went to America and became something else. He became a mascot for hackers, people who didn't quite sort of like fit in with jocks, people who had a passion for music. The computer generated side of him was like really spoke to hackers and everything. So he was a real mascot for sort of like subcultures of geeky subcultures, really. And I don't think he went to America to do that, but it was when it's Max Headroom that does the broadcast intrusion, you already think that he's that way inclined already, don't you? You already think that he's a champion of these people, which is strange because you wouldn't think of it as that. But now when you look back, you know, he's everything that hacking represents.
On the American show, he became something that I think he wasn't supposed to. He morphed too far away from his original meaning and intent. And as a result, I think that was probably why it died.
Also, with the fact that, you know, we're talking, he's very much, it's like Frankenstein and Frankenstein's monster, really, isn't it? Because when you look at actually what happened, it was his creator that took the news reporter's brain and stuck him in a computer. So it was actually the evil guy was actually the hacker's hero, because he could hack this character Max Headroom. But actually we manifest all our affection on Max Headroom. We've all fallen in love with Frankenstein's monster, but we've forgotten about Frankenstein himself.
That's because he's just a side character, isn't he? It was written to facilitate Max. Max is the star, and then all of these people are just people around him. You can see that a little bit. The desperately, in the American TV series, that is, they're desperately grabbing for some sort of relevancy, for some sort of... The reason it flopped, I think, and was cancelled, is because it didn't work. In that context, outside of his original box, he just didn't work.
Yeah, you could think of like certain shows where the back character sort of comes over and becomes the main character in the show, and sometimes it doesn't work that well, maybe. Yeah, so yeah, I could say that there's a lot to be said for that. Definitely. I think, yeah, he became when it's like the coach, isn't it? When the manager gets a sack, right, and then the reserves coach takes over, and he does really well for a couple of games, doesn't he? But they still replace him. They still replace him for a bigger character, and I think that's where Max probably ended up. Maybe, I don't know. He's a strange one. I don't know why. If they just took him on as a presenter, then that had been one thing. But you know, it's a bit like you know, we don't want to follow the presenter home, do we? And follow their life. Yeah. We just want to see that. Also, the other thing that gets me on is Black Mirror. You know, there are certain episodes of Black Mirror where there's CGI created characters that people really like, but the person that's actually running the character is in conflict all the time, because they're having to do and say things which are against their own personal politics. So it's quite Black Mirror in that way, I think.
Yeah, I wonder if that took some sort of inspiration from Max, because we go back to the point you made about the guests on his show. That it worked in that context, the character. I think it really worked, and that's where perhaps he most shone. And I think that's where the inspiration comes from. Look at Sacha Baron Cohen and Ali G and Borat and
Dennis Pennis,
all
and
his
all those
characters.
People.
They're based on the same thing as that chat show.
And there's nothing better when you've got a celebrity for a book to plug or a song to sell. They then become a better thing because they're more malleable, because you can you know they're part of the deal. You know, they need to laugh with the presenter, they need to go along with his jokes and things like that. But when the presenter becomes the main thing and the guest just becomes the second fiddle, the guest is there and the presenter's got nothing to bounce off of.
That's right, the guests are the joke, aren't they? Because if they think, oh, he's a real guy, he's a genuine guy, he's a proper TV presenter, then that's part of the whole deceit of it. And that's why we still see that sort of thing happening today. I don't know why I'm thinking of Trigger Happy TV.
Dom Jolly, yeah.
Yeah, with the massive mobile phone. Yeah. Hello, yeah, hello, yeah.
Yeah. No, it's shit.
It's like real life hacking. It's taking Max Headroom hack and going into the streets.
Well, yeah, that's always been about with candid camera and things. But back then, you see, cameras and all that they're a bloody luxury, you know. So like you needed to have all these people in on it. But then you look at what Dom Jolly did with a quick hack. He's doing it because the technology is becoming a lot more easier to handle, and it's becoming more available to anybody, which goes back to your camcorder again. You know, the camcorder that the incident was perhaps filmed on, which is quite feasible. It's available because it's now available to people, whereas the TV studio equipment and the uplink lorry and all that are still very much out of bounds and out of the regular sort of like you can't buy used ones or anything like that. You know, they're all built for purpose. So you could see the real sort of like change between, oh, we can do this by ourselves, but we need to still use this bit from the man. And that is the hacking part, isn't it? That's what hacking is all about. Hacking's about nicking the bit off the man with the bit that the people can have. You go back to phone phreaking. Anybody could whistle. So you whistle down the man's phone and that gets you free phone calls.
Captain Crunch, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. And that's exactly what the spirit of hacking is. Maybe if you give everything to the people, there won't be any hacking because the man doesn't own anything. And that maybe goes back to, you know, Max Headroom sort of jumping his little shark. When he belonged to everybody, in the end, through the hacking incident, he no longer needed to make any more appearances. His work had been done. He had snuffed out hack culture.
Are you saying that was actually the real Max Headroom? What if it was? He took off the mask, and beneath him, Max Headroom. Yes.
Yeah, he just goes into his wardrobe and it's just like Max Headroom masks with suits, and he goes, "I'll wear that one today." And it's
progressively bigger masks that fit over the other one.
Yeah. Well, we know what happened to Max Headroom in the end. He reappeared for Channel 4, didn't he, for their digital campaign? So he became an aged, grumpy-looking guy. And I read quite recently that he has been reprised. He is going to come back.
That would be brilliant. And
yeah,
how much does the Max Headroom hack feed into this? I think a massive amount. There is a renewed thirst for Max Headroom stuff. Would this have happened without the hack?
No.
Maybe. Well, you could make a case that maybe, because he was so big in the 80s, and you can see that all 80s stuff is coming back into fashion now. Stranger Things shot entirely in 80s fashion. Neon, vaporwave aesthetics, they all have returned in the last 10 years or so in a big way. As sort of the kids of the 80s have grown and become the main consumer in this current age. And Max Headroom, 1985 to 1988, 9, around about that time, was huge. It was enormous around that time. So yeah, it could be that, but the Max Headroom incident is how a lot of kids know him. I'm going to say this. My brother won't mind me saying this, but he was in a pub and he overheard somebody talking about the Max Headroom incident around about the age 20. And my brother said to them, "Oh yeah, the Max Headroom incident. It's really cool, that." And the 20-year-old said, "What? You know about the Max Headroom incident? You know about it. You're not supposed to know about that. That's the domain of kids. That's like a rowdy youngster's domain."
Oh, right. Yeah, so it was meant to be a domain of a certain. So is your brother older than you or younger than you?
He's only slightly younger than me. Yeah, but he's definitely older than the person that he met in the pub.
And he wasn't meant to know about Max Headroom.
No, he wasn't meant. Supposedly, wasn't meant to know about it.
He's not allowed to know about it. Yeah. That's something. But the thing is, with what I like about the Max Headroom thing so much is it is the folklore. You can see how previous generations spoke about, I mentioned earlier, Spring-Heeled Jack, and people, he could jump over walls. So, because he could jump very high and get out of anywhere where he was locked up, and other legends, and I don't mean legends as in sort of like, David Bowie or anything like that. I mean, legends as in sort of like folklore or lore itself, you know, and that's why it's nice to have Max Headroom, because he can still live in a modern age.
Yeah, he's an urban legend, isn't he?
He is an urban legend. You know, it's sort of like, we don't have sea monsters and all that. We've been all everywhere now. We know all about them. But this thing, there's still he fits enough narratives, and that, you know, I love the guy really. It was the first thing like we did on, you know, when I could convert images on teletext and things like that. He was the first character I did. Because, you know, what was the first thing you ever wanted to do? And that to me was him. You know, you say, you know, if I say, oh, you go into a record shop and you can pick whatever you like, you'll go in and pick that record up. Well, with me, you know, what was the first image I wanted to rip off? And that's because it was they're a pigeon pair, Max Headroom and digitized stuff and all that. But that is the irony, isn't it? That the fact is he was all completely flesh and blood. But, you know, in my mind, he's this computer character.
Yeah, he did fool a lot of people in the 80s. Some people thought that he was a CGI character. So that's testament to the great makeup and TV effects they had. The background in the American show was generated on an Atari ST, as you mentioned. And in the British show, I think it was recycled from the Yankel and Morton advertising agency. But it was very similar, and from just seeing the background, you might think conflate the fact that, oh, this guy's CGI as well. But the makeup, incidentally, Matt Frewer really struggled with. He said, "Imagine having a giant tennis ball on your head," or something to that effect. So, great credit to that guy who played the character so well. He was the perfect guy. Incidentally, he's Canadian, isn't he? He's not American. He's playing this parody. Was he working in the UK or had an actor's permit in the UK?
Well, he would have been, because he was married to the actress that played Dr. Dacre's girlfriend in A Very Peculiar Practice. I don't know if they got married at that particular time, but
Amanda Hillwood.
Yeah, so that would put him in the UK or near the UK in the mid-80s, because that's when it was being filmed. So yeah, it could be. It could just be like an address book thing. But they would have probably took him as you know, if they wanted an American character and he could pull off a North American twang voice to surmise even further. You know, Canadian might have got the character maybe where. You know, getting American actors over would have been a bit harder. You know, where he's so yeah, it could have been that. But I mean, you know, you know, he certainly pulled the character off. And whenever you see Matt Frewer sans Max Headroom makeup, he's still Max Headroom, which
he still looks like him, doesn't he?
It's probably a curse for the guy, but you know, he is Max. You know, you could never have another Max Headroom.
Oh, you're Max Headroom, aren't you? Do the voice. Do the voice.
Do the voice. Yeah, he'll go fuck off.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, he yes.
Hi, this is Max Headroom, live down under. Normally I'd say sunglasses are ostentatious. But the beaches here are so hot. I actually need mine. You certainly don't seem to need much else. But there's one thing you need whenever you're sweating it out for Australia. And what I'm referring to is it. And it is Coke, which is why Cokeologists everywhere say Coke is it.
Should we go through a couple more theories before we close on this special edition?
I think we ought to. I think what we can do is do theories in I don't know, 5 sentences.
5 sentences. Right.
5-sentence theory. Or have I ruined it? Just give us your theories, Dan.
Oh, okay. Well, do you want my honest opinion on what I think the real theory behind the whole thing is?
Yes.
It's a little bit hazy. It's not all thought out like your theory about the communists, Carl.
It's always the communists.
I tend to think that there's something going on with the TV station there. There's a big link with the TV station.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was committed from within, or even without, with the laid off employees. But they would definitely have had the extensive broadcasting knowledge that the FCC representative kept banging on about in the news stories.
Take some pretty sophisticated microwave equipment operating in the broadcast auxiliary frequency bands. Someone who really knows the business and microwave in general. And apparently somebody with some microwave equipment was able to interfere with our signal going to the Hancock transmitter.
Now, this is not just anybody off the street. He has to have an electronic expertise of some level, right?
Yes, he does. It takes very sophisticated equipment to do this at a significant power level. So this isn't something that just anyone would be able to accomplish. Someone wants to get into your house, they can find a way to do that. And I guess likewise, if someone wants to interfere with your signal, they can find a way to do that. It takes some pretty significant equipment, technical equipment, and some knowledge of broadcast frequencies, microwave frequencies, and a lot of power.
I don't think it was just some random guys doing it, because there seemed to be an axe to grind with the TV station. Have I gone over 5 sentences yet?
You keep going, mate.
It was a team effort, put it that way. Frewer and Captain Midnight, one-man efforts.
Mm-hmm.
This was a team effort. There were lots of people involved, at least 2. Max, his accomplice, and then whoever they needed to get the tech to do that. It wasn't a one-man operation.
No.
So for that reason, I think it's more conspiratorial. Mm-hmm. And I also think there is a cover-up going on somewhere. There's definitely a cover-up, keeping the real identities secret.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Chicago police were paid off.
Mm.
Allegedly. It's just a theory. It's not what actually happened, but that's just it's the ballpark theory of what I think. It's not interesting. It's not funny, but there you go.
Well, so you're saying that there was some angst at the TV station, and some people got together and collaborated in spirit and in solidarity of the people that were being hard done by. So you could have had people that were staying at the station after this, but they were in on it as a show of strength or a show of unity for
frickin' liberals.
Yeah, for the people that weren't going to be around. And then the last favour they all did each other was tie the investigating authorities up in knots, so they just eventually gave up. I'd say that that is a feasible thing. We just still don't know the motive. It's weird. We know the where and we know the how, but we don't really know the why. What was the motive? I mean, sacking someone, yeah, that sucks. But then why go to those lengths when you could just have wrote a letter to a newspaper, or you got that technology? You could have took over a radio station a lot easier, a talk radio station or something like that. But I think you're onto something. I think what this was a demonstration to, you fired me. Look what I was capable of doing. You fired the best. That's the pen point. Yeah, you have just got rid of me, and I'm showing you how bloody good I am, that I could have done this. I'm such a genius that I can do this to your station anytime I liked, and you've just got rid of your best talent. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. But I do think your explanation is excellent, but it also backs up the fact that Max Headroom is actually an afterthought rather than the motive. I think this was, I'm going to show you how bloody good I am at, or we are as a collective to do this, and we're going to show you in this particular way. So we're going to put this ridiculous character on, just to really lampoon your TV station. I mean, they could have broken. They could have played Beethoven.
Yeah. Well, they could
have showed another Doctor Who. They could have showed another episode of Doctor Who. They really messed people. Yeah, that would have upset a lot of people. You know, they'll go, oh no, I was just watching Tom Baker. Now it's bloody Peter Davidson. What's going on?
The hackers had a lot of power in their hands, more than they could have known. Well, actually, maybe they knew it. Maybe they knew that if they did something really serious, they wouldn't have been able to get away with it. The TV station, it's a big corporation, but you can't really cover up criminal stuff like that. I mean, really criminal stuff. If you came on the air and tried to convince somebody that, I don't know, so create scandal. If you came on the air to try and create a political scandal or something like that, then you probably wouldn't have been able to get away with it. But you can just about cover up somebody coming on the air and farting in the camera.
There's another thing with your theory as well that I like. The perpetrators could still be working in TV. So they might have just moved on. They might have just got another job to, they've messed around with WGN. That was their last cheerio to that particular station. And they've done that for a bit of a laugh. But if that ever came out that they were involved with this in a particular way, well, for the time of the investigation, for sure, probably not so now. But they had other jobs to go on to. It would have been in their best interest to keep it secret. So if all of a sudden I was employing somebody and I found out that 4 years prior they'd hijacked a TV station, I might not be so happy. I might have just sacked them on the spot. So it could be that they were just starting out in their careers, and it was perhaps a folly for them to do that, and they all took a collective shit in their trousers and decided to keep it a little bit on the QT.
Oh, my files! Oh, I just laid a giant masterpiece for all the greatest world newspaper nerds.
Yeah, I think it was probably before the sackings happened, as it's saying, come on, let's all get together and say, screw you. Like that. But literally middle finger. But actually, if I were someone like that, I would put the Max Headroom hijacker on my CV, far from shying away from it. I'd embrace it and say, look at this, look at the technological...
Well, you would now, but you've got to remember, back at the time, the TV stations were run by people who were real company men. They were... They now you'd look and go, yeah, that's real resourcefulness. That's brilliant. You can make entertainment. You'd make an excellent YouTuber, and things like that. But back then, I mean, in the UK, I can only really talk about the UK, but Top of the Pops was run by people like who were schoolmasters and things like that, and it was all fairly regimented. It was like a government department. So you can imagine that some of these TV stations, to get a foot in through the door, you had to be clean and clear and the right sort of person, which you weren't going to be if you're subversive. They've rolled up some dog poo and glitter, for the want of a better term, to say, yeah, we done this, but you were lucky because we only swiped you around the face rather than smashed you on the nose, maybe. But I think there's more messages in that. Also, with what they were doing on the video, you were saying earlier, they did various things, waving things about, saying certain things, and they were checking to see what visual things could actually be done with the type of technology that they were using. So they weren't going to waste time and energy on holding a banner up that had a political message on it, maybe, if they wanted to carry this stunt off elsewhere, because their goal resolution's too rubbish, so maybe that's why the can of Coke came out. They were just trying certain things to see how that would come across on a hacked TV broadcast.
It's very hard to tell if it is a Coke or a Pepsi can. I've watched back and paused it, but it's in the 1980s. If you had that on a VHS tape, it would have been hard to tell. So does he have a Coke or a Pepsi can? I'm sure we know now.
I think, well, people say it's Pepsi, don't they? Because that's the irony is that he's plugging the wrong product. You know, he's sort of like, we want to make it as ironic as possible. You know, but again, is that a tell to say that the people didn't actually really know what he did advertise? They just knew it was a cola. It could be that, or you know, but you know, it's more than probably that they did know. And they thought, well, how are we going to really piss off the IP of Max Headroom? We'll have him holding up the wrong Coke can or the wrong make of Coke. So yeah, it's a lot of interesting things on it. And
do you think it could have been an attack on Max Headroom himself? Hence the wider media. Do you think they were appropriating that for its original purpose, as in satirizing the media? Or do you think they didn't like Max Headroom and they were attacking him in some ways?
Well, it did both, really. I think it was something. I think both ideas can exist. I think that people can be as upset as at Max Headroom as a concept, and at the same time be upset at TV for maybe accepting him as easily as they did. But you know, I can tell you one person who definitely wasn't watching that, and that was Matt Frewer or the Max Headroom team. You know, they're not going to be watching a TV station in Chicago. So it's a case of, I don't think it was a dig at the people as such, but I think it was a dig at the IP maybe. But again, it could just be that they said, right, yeah, we need something for maximum shock value that isn't going to make people cry. You know, I've picked these props up at the local shop. And the other thing is, you know, the use of the phallic sex toy, you see, you're not going to get many owners of sex shops going, oh, yes, I'm an owner of a sex shop. Yeah, they came in and bought that off of me. You know, it's, you know, the clandestine nature of everything. You know, it's going to be a case of whoever's selling that sort of gear off might not actually be able to get an open forum on broadcast media anyway. So it was a case of, yeah.
This vibrator was brought to you by John's Sex Shop, Market Street, Chicago. Only the finest. We get straight to the point.
Yeah, we cut out the middle man.
Yeah. Oh dear. Right, yeah. So to wrap up, I have one more theory.
Yes.
And this answers all of the questions, I think, on why the Max Headroom hijacker has not been caught. And that's because he died of piles minutes after he was hit on the bottom with the fly swatter. And that is why he's no longer on television today, our mate, Max Headroom. But his body of work, it survives, it endures. People still love him. Eminem loves him because he appeared in the Rap God video, didn't he?
Yeah, so you're saying that he died of nobbies. Nobby styles. Yeah. Oh dear. So yeah, he could have caught the wave of Preparation H though, couldn't he? Rather than using,
that was good, wasn't it? That was good.
Yeah, he could be using the old Preparation H, and but maybe that's what he did. Maybe he got the Preparation H mixed up with his Nivea cream, and that's why his face was so shiny all the time. So his cheeks began to shrink.
I went through the effort of getting all these preps tonight, but I didn't get the Piles cream.
Oh.
What a shame. This show was so very nearly complete.
And you haven't got a French maid behind you spanking your bottom with a huge dildo.
I could have hired one from Fiverr, couldn't I? For the whole show. Smoking a cigarette. Are you done yet, love? Come on. What are you talking about? Max Headroom. I was born in 1992. Pull the vibrator out and go.
Coming to get me.
So, Dan, I just wanted to sort of say, in a world where we didn't have the Max Headroom incident, where do you think we would be thinking of Max Headroom now?
I think the Max Headroom incident is a huge part of Max Headroom folklore. And an evidence for this is in the fact it's featured prominently in the Wikipedia article. And that is where people find out about the past these days. In years gone by, we would have checked encyclopedias, asked our elders, but now we have the internet and Wikipedia, and it's there front and center. And people see, oh, this cool character, Max Headroom, had a show, but what's this? Someone in a Max Headroom mask hacked into a TV program. That's the most interesting thing that pops out at you when you read it. That, along with the whole folklore behind it, is one of the reasons why he's coming back. I'd love to see if he makes a reference to the Chicago TV hijack in his new show.
Yeah.
He should do, really, because he has a lot to thank. He has
to thank. He might have a knowing reference in there. There might be something like I don't know. He might pull up in a car with WGN in the registration or something like that, and that would be enough. That would keep us Uber fans really, really interested. But yeah, I think that I think for me, the a world without the intrusion, Max Headroom would just have been another. He would have been a rare mention on a I Love the 80s Rent-A-Gob Talking Heads thing, you know. And it would be, oh yeah, do you remember that cartoon character? Yeah, a bit like Roland Rat, I think. I think he would be held in that sort of esteem. But I'm just so glad that the intrusion happened, because it's built this character up in our minds. This caricature of a I don't know, like a hack culture cyberpunk demigod. Yeah, you know, but yeah, that's the hyperbole to Max there, Dan, and yeah, I think that's all my theories, and I really liked yours. I think your cheesed off employees is the one to go with, but
if we're being sensible, yes.
Yeah, but I think it fits in that they became useful idiots for my CIA conspiracy.
So that's the whole reason that they did it, is because they want to facilitate your conspiracy theory in the year 2022.
Yeah, I think they yeah. So I think they were taken advantage of. I think someone had said, yeah, you really need to do this and prove your point. Yeah.
You know what? Everything you've said does make sense. A lot of it is true. So there is a possibility that it could be. There is a world where the communists caused the Max Headroom hijack.
Yes.
I'd love to think that that's the case.
That's going on the thumbnail, isn't it? For the that's going on the YouTube thumbnail.
I'll do an AI art of Max Headroom
so
with the
Max Headroom was a capitalist crusader. And then it will take them 2 hours to get to the point where they understand why we put that in. But I think, you know, I think you know, in summary, I think it was a proof of concept, and they needed to try it out somewhere, and they tried it out in Chicago because the conditions were right. They had enough people pissed off at the local station with the knowledge. So they were groomed. These people were groomed by the local handlers to do their thing. You know, they're going, that'd be a great idea, it'd be really good. But actually, it was like they were sort of duped into doing it. I think they were tricked into doing it, and they were probably blackmailed afterwards as well. And that's why it never came out.
It's as plausible as any other theory, because we just don't know what happened, do we? That's why all these out there theories, there's a small chance that they could be true. And that is why it endures to this day, the Max Headroom hack. Now, Carl.
Yes.
We're going to have to come back in the future for more broadcast signal intrusion related episodes. Captain Midnight, we could do a whole show on Vrillon, couldn't we? Because I've got some stuff to say about that. But we're going to leave you tonight, ladies and gentlemen, with one of my favorite, a very British hack. And this is from recent times, the year 2017. TheGuardian.com. Local radio station keeps getting hijacked by a song about masturbation. Ofcom hunting pirate who persistently overrides frequency of Mansfield 103.2 to play the Winkers song by Ivor Biggin. So that's the Max Headroom hijack of Great Britain, ladies and gentlemen. So that's what you need to use the hijacks for. That's a proper use of it. Not saying Chuck Swirsky is a frickin' liberal, just to make stupid sex jokes.
That's it. Well, we'll dedicate this whole episode to Chuck Swirsky, and also if anybody wants to go and find that endless thread discussion,
yes,
it's available as an excellent podcast, and the transcript's available online as well, as you'll find out. And also there are other things you can look on there. There's a Stuff You Should Know podcast about the Max Headroom incident, again from probably told by the best people, the American people, because that's where it happened. So there's plenty of resources out there for anyone to go and have a look, but stick your own opinions, keep to yourself. No, only joking. Stick your own opinions in the comments. Go on, I dare you.
Yes, please do. If you've watched to this point, just leave a comment just to say something silly. I don't know.
Yeah, if you've reached this point in the podcast, you've got to write in the comment. You've got to write what word should I put in the comments, Dan?
My piles. No, don't put that. Oh, but by the way, some people claim that he says my files, which I think that's more of an anachronism. I think he does say my piles because then he proceeds to poop all over his chair, doesn't he?
He defiles. Yes, yeah, defiles. Oh, my defiles. You've got to type that in. Yeah, that's it.
Oh, he's defiled the American public. Oh, that's enough. That's enough. Right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching the Max Headroom, the long-awaited Max Headroom edition of the Sofa Club, the television Sofa Club. I've really enjoyed this venture into American television tonight. What say you, Carlos?
It was absolutely brilliant, Dan. Thanks for having me on, and I'll look forward to boring you to death again in the future.
You've not bored me to death. No. It's a very plausible theory.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. I'll try not to bring my squeaky chair next time. You're going to have a nightmare with the edits in that.
Well, Max Headroom had a quite squeaky chair. It went...
Yeah, it was his piles.
There was a lot of background noise and clattering, wasn't there? Like tongue, clatter, clatter.
Yeah,
a lot of Foley going on there.
Yeah, I want to say, they must have dropped the microphone down the stairs or something like that. So they went down to one mic. But, yeah. No, brilliant, though. Thank you, Dan. Enjoyed that.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you, Carlos, for joining me tonight, my co-host.
No worries. And yes.
Anything else to say in closing? Anything else that you want to add to today's show?
I have nothing else, Dan.
We've covered everything. There is nothing. Incoming part 2 next year. You wait. There's about a million things we haven't covered.
Another theory.
So, guys, please do join us again in the future for related contents. And it's been a great night. Thank you for listening this far. We hope we've entertained you with some of our crackpot and not so crackpot theories. And remember, this is just for entertainment. I mean, was anything we said really serious tonight? Well, that's for you to go away and think about. And that's the beauty of the Max Headroom incident. But for now, I say thank you very much and say, they're coming to get me! Ah! They're coming to get us, Carl. What do you have to say to that?
Too late. They've got me already.
Ah, it's brilliant. All right. Bye, everybody. Thank you very much.
It annoyed some viewers.
No, I just thought it would be just a slight mess up, but that in the middle of the tape, it's going to be... We're going to have to tape over it.
Angered others. Somebody wants to get attention, what do? They go break into a television broadcast. just to get attention, like throwing a brick through your window, so to speak. Okay. It's not too bright, really. Well, some thought it was a lot of fun. So what did you think about the whole thing?
Very